Welcome to the Scariest Things podcast, your gateway to the tropes and trends of the horror genre. This is episode 176, where we are talking about the movies that made us. This is Mike Campbell, and I am joined by
Eric Lee
and
Liz Williams.
Yes, this is kind of this is like this is the greatest rationalization for why we like horror films, I guess. Yeah. We're rationalizing both our fears and our love of the horror genre.
This is very personal. This is get close to your hosts.
Yeah.
At the Scariest Things.
Huh?
Get close to your hosts. All right. Well, there's your tagline for
I know. I like
episode 176. Get close to your hosts. I am breaking my films into three categories. I'm sitting at home alone watching Creature feature in the early 70s by myself on a Saturday afternoon. The sleepover
Everybody's got one of those.
subcategory, and then the VHS subcategory. I think that's where you get the films that made it. Those are the foundational pieces and parts of what makes you freaked out and why your lizard reptilian part of your brain is still buzzing all these years later.
All right. For me, I've got a foundational piece. I'm actually not going to do, because there's one movie that I've talked about a lot about my experience with my experience with The Thing. I think I've told that story.
Sure. Yeah.
So but I have two other special moment
Okay.
movies that have gotten me to where I am today doing this with you guys.
Okay. Okay.
Cool. All right. Mine are all from when I was like little to probably like fourth grade. That was a sleepover movie that we'll talk about. And I'm skipping my seminal. I saw Night of the Living Dead when I was way too young, and that's really kicked it off.
Yeah.
These are more, parents bring them home from the video store because they're like, these are probably for kids. No, in the 80s, things that were for kids were not for kids. So
It's true. The box does lie.
The box does lie, and just because it's a cartoon does not mean it's for children.
Right.
What was Eric? What was the film that made you want to do a podcast in 2017?
We'll get to it.
Oh, we will get to it. Okay. So there is a film that you went, it'd be fun to sit down for 45 minutes to an hour and blather on about that
let
me-
movie.
Eric.
Actually, I think I'm going to couch that. It's a little bit. It's a slightly different response. But if I'm
Okay.
No, I think I do. I think I've got it. I
Okay.
think I can tie
Eric's
one of my
delving deep
films.
into
I know.
himself.
I
Doing
know.
the
That's right.
work.
It's a very introspective analysis
Okay.
of why do I do this?
Okay.
Why
Okay, lean back on that chaise lounge.
I like it.
Lean back.
Tell me what
So.
you don't like about yourself. Little nip tuck
well,
there.
I'll start off by saying the movie that really, from the very beginning, that told me I'm a monster movie fan. Therefore, I'm a horror movie fan. I was 6 years old when I saw this. And I was 6 years old when I saw King Kong.
Oh, right.
The 1933 Marion Cooper, Willis O'Brien.
Not Jessica Lange and Jeff Bridges.
No, I was sorely disappointed in the
And
76 one.
and Charles Grodin.
Because you know why the 76 one was so disappointing?
Why?
No dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There's a giant snake.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
Okay.
That does not count.
Snakes don't count.
Wrong buildings. Wrong buildings. And plus, it didn't look like a gorilla. It looked like a guy in a gorilla suit. So, I was 6 years old, and I was with my parents. And we went to go see my parents. My dad was a young professor at UC Davis at the time, and we were invited to go to some of his colleagues.
Right.
And I didn't want to listen to them blather on about fisheries biology, which I still wouldn't want to do. But they said, "Hey, we got a television in the back." And my sister fell asleep, and so I got to watch KTVU Channel 2 with Bob Wilkins.
Woo!
creature feature.
Yeah.
I know that our friend David Dustmalchin also likes to reference his love of horror hosts, and in the Sacramento area it was and in the Bay Area it was Bob Wilkins. And this was my first real experience with it, because it was like it's like I was either going to watch that or watch Let's Make a Deal or Kojak or something like that. And it's
right.
But all of a sudden I got to see they showed an RKO radio production of King Kong, and it was pure magic, because also there were dinosaurs.
Yeah,
it was
heck
like,
yeah.
and it was it was a black and white television.
Mm-hmm.
So of course the gorgeous black and white and the amazing. It's like I didn't know these things were possible, and to that day I think the Willis O'Brien effects were still better than most anything that was done in 1970 that you would put on the screen. So this was 1976 that I saw this. Right, and I think the reason why they were doing King Kong was because the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong was about ready to come out, and so they were pushing,
sure
pushing this. And so and when I was a kid, I was so into dinosaurs that I was as a first grader, I did a presentation about the geological timetables to a kindergarten class. I don't think anybody got it, but
take that fisheries biologist.
Yeah, it's like I know it was, but I knew my Silurian, Ordovician, all that kind of stuff. I still know to this day from what I learned how to read as a 5-year-old was dinosaurs.
Right.
So this is, again, 15 years before Jurassic Park would arrive.
Yep.
There was a lot of this cross promotional stuff about King Kong, and after this, I was scared, because particularly the moment where Kong busts through the subway and his head comes through.
Yep.
I think I screamed, and my parents checked on me. And also when he goes in and he's climbing the building where Fay Ray is, and Darrow's in bed, and the hand comes through and he grabs her and he pulls her out and he's gonna go climb and it was, oh my God, he's gonna eat her. I couldn't get enough. And so my school library had these hardbound monster series books from Crestwood House. Now I don't know if you're Mike, since you're my age.
Yeah.
These were orange hardbound books.
Oh yeah, I totally remember them.
And they maybe had like 50 pages in them.
There was like Dracula.
Yes.
There was like the Mummy, Frankenstein, the Wolfman,
Yes, and the Blob, and the Deadly Mantis, which was like, hey, go figure. But you can still get them online if you look on Amazon. But this was a thing that right at this time they were new, and so that they were new to the library.
Yeah.
And so I just had those books on constant rotation. So this is how I learned about horror movies.
Yeah.
This was that all of a sudden I was in. I knew I loved, it's like, and I couldn't get enough of it. Phantom of the Opera or whether it was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And but that was all the books that I was checking out from Valley Oak Elementary library. I loved this stuff, and so that was the little boy moment for me.
Heck
Thank you to Dr. Ehrman for letting me hang out in his in the back room and watching King Kong, because if not for that, I wouldn't be doing this today. Or probably it may have come out very differently. It gave me a very early start to like monster movies and therefore horror movies.
Yeah, heck yeah. Now, when was the last time you went back and rewatched the original King Kong? Is this a thing that you go back to on a regular basis?
Yeah, I'll see it every 3 or 4 years.
Okay. Because it's not that long.
No, it's only about an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, which is perfect.
Yeah, and but it's you realize how skillful Willis O'Brien was and all the tricks. The one thing that I really wish that they had, like, I'm also a fan of the Peter Jackson one, which gave us the trench, the when I also remember being scared when King Kong started rolling the log, and all the sailors were falling in this thing.
Yeah.
They actually RKO they edited out the sequence where the sailors landed in the pit and got just demolished by bugs.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson remembered that, and he came back and gave us the bugs and the slugs and all that stuff. It was just, you know.
Now, what about Kong Skull Island? Where are you at with that?
It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I think it's entertaining.
Sure.
It's got monsters, but it is not. It's not true King Kong because I want to see my King Kong look like a gorilla.
Right.
And you know, Kong Skull Island didn't want to make me cry like 1933 and the 2008 one where it's like the sad farewell to the king. And it was
yeah.
That movie gets me. It still does. I love that movie.
All right. Speaking of crying, I had a very similar experience with a giant person in the 1970s, courtesy of Creature Feature. This is the Burt Gordon film, War of the Colossal Beast, a.k.a. Revenge of the Colossal Man and the Colossal Beast. This is the follow-up to Gordon's earlier film from 1957, a year before, called The Amazing Colossal Man. Mm-hmm. This was one of the very, very first American International Pictures films. Yep. And this one was billed as a double feature drive-in film with The Attack of the Puppet People, which I've actually never seen, Attack of the Puppet People. But this is also in the same way and largely cribbed from the same sort of empathy that you derive from King Kong. It's cribbed from that exact same storyline where you empathize with this giant being that has no place on planet Earth and has, no friends and is left to live a very lonely and horrible existence. Of course, this was, from the late 1950s. It would predate the Incredible Hulk by six years?
I think 68. I think.
Whether or not Marvel Comics are the ultimate rip-off artists or not, it's for you to say. But this does involve a army colonel who is blasted through an atomic bomb and beset with gamma radiation, and he turns into this giant, horrible human being. This is the second. So in the first film, in The Amazing Colossal Man from 1957, his face is totally fine, but at the end of The Amazing Colossal Man, the army descends upon him at the Hoover Dam, shoots him up. He falls off the Hoover Dam and has this massive concussion on the side of his face, which
for hitting the dam,
stumbling down the side of the dam. And so what you'll see in this one, this is probably the more famous image of the two, is that like the whole side of his face is misshapen and one of his eyes is gone, and it's just this dead black hole going into his head. The special effects are wonderful in that they largely stay away and out of focus, so you don't get too close into them to see how hokey they look, coupled with the fact that the green screen technology was still pretty new, so they had to sort of stay on these wide shots away from the Colossal Man. But I do recall as a kid seeing this film and being so shocked by his face. I was probably the same age, 5, 6, something like that. But seeing his face and seeing how disformed and disfigured it was really, really terrifying to me. And the other thing, and to your point about sort of the empathy that King Kong brought to the table, this had the same kind of effect where at the end of the film, he attacks. They're up at the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles. He picks up a school bus, shakes the school bus full of the kids, and then he, even though he's this literally hulking monster, he has this moment, this gestalt where he realizes
I shouldn't shake this bus full of kids.
I shouldn't shake the bus
That's
full
why
of
they
kids.
don't have seatbelts on buses.
That's right. That's right.
You can
Right.
get them out easy.
Right. And that I'm really a horrible person, and he walks over to these huge transmission lines, grabs the transmission lines, and kills himself.
Oh.
And it's really sad. I watched it last night, and it was still really, really sad. Now, the other thing I think is really fascinating about it, though, is the film, both the 1957 and the 1958, are all shot black and white, save for, in this one, in the second film, save for the last, 5 minutes of the film where he kills himself, it's shot in color.
Weird.
Yeah, and so it just flips over to
Yeah.
color all of a sudden as he's grabbing the transmission lines and shocking himself, which is also shocking.
Yeah,
So
it would have been. It's too bad
Yeah.
that they didn't do Attack of the 50-Foot Woman with the Amazing Colossal Man double feature. That would have been great.
it'd be perfect.
Or the Incredible Shrinking Man, which was also another that
Right,
the opposite direction. That would have been a great one too.
Right.
I don't think that Attack of the 50-Foot Woman was an AIP film though.
I don't know.
But
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways,
All I know is
but that was your childhood empathy moment.
definitely. And I came to the realization that Stan Lee is a total rip-off artist. But
And you knew that.
that's a whole different
And then
story.
you knew that when you were 6.
It's like,
And you held
wait
the
a
grudge.
minute.
Rip-off! All right, Liz.
Okay. I also have creatures in my first film, but it is not an oldie. As a kid who grew up watching The Muppet Show all the time, when The Dark Crystal came out, that is what came home from the
heck
video
yeah.
store. So The Dark Crystal is Jim Henson's 1982, I'm going to call it a masterpiece, about
Yes.
Jen and Kira, the Gelflings, who are
I'm no
venturing. Yeah, they're venturing, like across a land. Well, there's the evil Skeksis they're trying to repair the shard to bring the land back together, and the Skeksis don't want that to happen because they want control. Talk about scary as shit looking puppets, which are really puppets.
Yeah.
The Skeksis are terrifying. They're like decrepit kind of birds with like hunchbacks and
vultures.
rotten, and they're gross vultures, and they're terrifying. There's a cast of hilarious characters through the thing that also scares the shit out of kids, though. There's Fezgig, their little dog with like extra rows of teeth.
Yes.
There's the Gelflings, who are kind of weird looking too, voiced by Jim Henson. That does Jem. And this is just one that I will always remember as being glued to the screen, but I'm sure my dad thought like, oh, it's the Muppets. It's Jim Henson. Of course it's going to be fine for like a 5-year-old. And it was, but it definitely started me liking things that were darker. This was like, oh, wait, the Muppets are kind of a little bit dark too. There's definitely some skits that kids did not understand back then that now when you watch it. But The Dark Crystal is one that I will watch over and over and over to this day. The puppetry and how good it looks. It's like watching the original Star Wars, and I know kids these days are like, that looks terrible. No, in my eyes, it will always look perfect because it holds up. Practical effects or puppets hold up over CGI.
Yeah. I think that in the same way that King Kong still holds up, that the craftsmanship is unmatched.
Yeah.
That they really nobody has outdone the Dark Crystal relative to puppet animation.
I don't think so. And I have not seen the Dark Crystal series that came out on Netflix.
Yeah, it's short-lived.
I had not ventured there. I don't know if I will, but maybe.
I always thought Uncle Deadly from the Muppet Show, who was like the Phantom, on the Muppet Show.
Oh yeah.
He always scared the hell out of me.
The Muppet Show, I was obsessed with. I thought Miss Piggy was just the epitome of glamour. My Miss Piggy pillow upstairs. I had like purple gloves that I would wear like Miss Piggy. I had a Miss Piggy big wheel.
Heck
all about Miss Piggy. So, and the Rainbow Connection will still bring me to tears when I hear it these days. And whenever I see a fork in the road, I think of the Muppet movie where it's a giant fork in the middle of the actual road. The Muppets and Jim Henson have influenced me, and The Dark Crystal is a great way to show how it can get a little scary, but still.
Oh my gosh, is it ever?
And
yeah.
It's creepy. I think if you showed it to a kid my age, like when I was probably 5 watching it, if it came out in 1982 in the theaters, I don't know how long until I got to home video, maybe 83. So I was 6. Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah,
for sure.
For young children, it's intense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I like it.
Okay.
Intense and scary. All right.
So,
Eric. Little Eric.
Going back to 1987.
Okay.
The fall of 1987.
Fall of 1987.
Mike will. Mike will find this familiar because
the podcast started.
This is University of Oregon. Chris Ralph's room.
Go Ducks.
So there are one of our Patreon contributors, Chris.
Yeah.
Also, a friend of ours, Jared Carlson. You, Mike, and I.
Yeah.
Watched Evil Dead 2.
Ooh.
It came out in 1987. We knew it's like I had seen, it's like Evil Dead. The first Evil Dead was a renowned forbidden fruit. That it was, I think it seems kind of quaint now in retrospect.
Did it really come out in 87? Evil Dead 2?
Evil Dead 2, 1987. So it came
really?
out,
I would have thought it was earlier. Huh.
No.
Okay.
Because Evil Dead 1 was 1981.
Right.
Evil Dead 2. And so we saw it on VHS in Chris's room.
As you should.
And this was all of a sudden, so this is not quite this isn't the high school sleep or the junior high school sleepover that The Thing was for me. But this was the thing that bonded me to my dorm mates.
Yeah.
You, Chris, and
sure.
Jared, and probably Kyle Anderson was probably there too.
Yep.
He wasn't just stoned out of his mind. But we had one hell of a time watching this. It's like dead by dawn, all this kind of stuff, and there was and just the vomit spewing, and we were just howling with laughter. We had so much fun.
Yeah,
and that was like I've got my community of horror fans now. Granted, I think Jared still will comment on some stuff, and Chris has been he was a film major, and and he even had to admit how masterful it was because I think the buzz was coming. That
Chris has not made a horror film yet, though. Come on, Chris.
Yeah, I
you
know.
can do better.
Chris is
do better.
You can
do better.
Do something. He's done a couple of documentaries.
He needs to do a horror film.
But I think this cemented my because I think as a kid I grew up and it's like, did I grow out of it? No. No. This was, and after this, I think that we went to see the John Carpenter
Prince of Darkness.
And then later on, Mike and I would be doing we would run movies for our dorm mates.
Yeah,
and so we
absolutely.
would get, I think we got Killer Clowns from Outer Space and The Blob, and but this was all of a sudden I went, I've got a horror community, and that's why, and ever since then I knew that you were into it, and then which fast forward from that point 25 years
to 2017,
where we get all of a sudden now it's like, hey man, I'm bored. After watching, it's like I think we might have bottomed out on whatever movie Madness has in the horror rack. We were very wrong on that account.
Oh my god!
But it was the kind of a thing where all of a sudden it's like if I've got a kindred spirit to watch horror movies with, that sort of informed me because you more than the other two were it's like you were down with, because we were
Oh
also,
my gosh, yeah.
we were
Yeah.
also going, because Mike and I also roomed together throughout the upcoming years, and Chris would always be going for movies like Paris, Texas, and so it's like, if you watch Paris, Texas, I think we got Sorority Girls in the Slime Ball Bolorama.
Yeah.
I think we were trying to find the sleaziest, most antithetical movie to Paris, Texas that we could.
I'm not watching Bergman.
But this dates back to, I think that we recognized that we had the same taste when we watched Evil Dead 2.
Yep.
And it was
Yeah.
and it was so silly and so gross. And after, I don't know if we plugged it in and watched it again, but it was amazing. I loved it. And
I do seemingly recall watching that like multiple times over the course of a weekend.
yeah.
When
Probably we had to
we-
get it in before you had to return the tape.
right.
Because it was that video store that was next to the Hiren's Drugs on Franklin Boulevard. I think
That's exactly where it was.
So,
yeah, which
yeah,
is now the
anyways.
Matthew Knight Arena.
Yep. All right, so that was my second key film of movies that made me.
All right, this is my sleepover horror film, and this is a 1979 psychological body horror film, The Brood. This, of course, is the foundation for my fear of dwarves. This film follows a man and his mentally ill ex-wife who has been sequestered by a psychiatrist known for his controversial therapy known as psychoplasmatics, which is just the best. This is, man, I think this is, I mean, I know we discussed this recently in the context of Canadian horror, but I think this is definitely the best of the Cronenberg films.
All of a sudden, it comes back to me.
Yes.
Last episode, I was trying to place the Cronenberg movie. It was Shivers.
Oh, Shivers. Right. Yeah, this one's incredible too, because this Cronenberg conceived of this film as he was amidst this incredibly acrimonious divorce. And he was in a bitter custody battle with his wife at the time, and he had seen Kramer versus Kramer, and he was
speaking of a horror movie.
He was disillusioned, believe it or not, by the sort of optimistic portrayal of the family breakdown and the couple's separation in Kramer versus Kramer, and so he was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna crank this up, and I'm gonna take divorce in a very, very, very different way." But my favorite review came from Leonard Maltin, who reviewed the film in 2 sentences. Egger eats her own afterbirth while midget clones beat grandparents and lovely young school teachers to death with mallets. It's a big, wide, wonderful world we are living in. And rated it an outright bomb. Leonard Maltin, once again, you could not be any more wrong. I think this is definitely the best.
Eating a placenta is a lot of fun.
Right. I think this is definitely the best Cronenberg film. This was listed on the Chicago Film Association's top 100 horror movies of all time. I know it's on my top 25 list. It's never quite cracked our top 100 list. The Bravo channel did rate one of the sequences, number 78 with the dwarfs, number 78 on its scariest 100 moments of all time. So I think there's definitely fans out there. It is a weird film. It's a horror film like, I would argue probably had never quite been done in 1979. Like it never been done previously. And I don't think it's quite ever been done since 1979. I mean, not tackling a subject like this in quite this same way, or even remotely in the same way.
I think that you try and think of the sticking points. There's the psychokinetic kind of a thing, and the children as or the brood being
right
a manifestation of
her aggression,
and plus.
And the divorce,
the birthing scene, man, it's just so raw.
Yeah.
It is so rough.
But this was, I guess this was when a lot of these films obviously were released in the theater, but then went to HBO, went to Showtime, went to Cinemax shortly thereafter. I mean, within months they were landing on those streaming channels. And so I saw this at a sleepover, 1:00 in the morning.
Yep.
Oh, hell yeah. It's 1:00 in the morning. It's like things are just getting going. We're going to be staying up till, 3 to watch this friggin' movie. And then, you go home the next day, completely bleary eyed and disoriented, trying to traumatized, trying to process what the hell you've just seen. And The Brood was that film that really, set me on my way for the darker and more horrifying aspects of the horror subgenre. Liz, what is your next film?
Okay, I'll go with my sleepover movie. I remember seeing this probably in 4th grade at my friend Fairleigh Cook's house. I'm sure we got it from the ZM video up the street. It's a 1980 movie, though, and it's a Disney movie that haunts me to this day. I still find it to be one of the scariest films I've ever seen, and it is called The Watcher in the Woods, starring Betty Davis.
Oh, wow.
The basic plot is when a family moves to a country home, the young girls experience strange happenings that have the link to an occult event in the years past. Scared the crap out of me. It has some fantastic jump scares, including probably the first cat jump scare I have ever seen.
I love a good cat jump scare.
So maybe that's why it always gets me to this day. So it stars Betty Davis as Mrs. Aylwood, who is like the crotchety old lady who lives in the big house. And it has a bunch of other kind of no-name people. But then there is young Kyle Richards, later to become a Real Housewife of Beverly Hills, as Ellie Curtis, the little girl who gets possessed by the ghost of Betty Davis's, is she missing or is she dead, young daughter, Karen. It's a cult, it's possession, it's scary shit, and hey, it's Disney and it's rated PG.
I have never seen Watcher in the Woods, and now, but I am,
What?
I know,
me neither.
I am super intrigued.
my
I'm
gosh.
definitely going to go and watch it.
Okay, so according to Wikipedia, I liked this fact though, that the producer pitched the project to the execs at Disney by saying this could be our Exorcist. But it's for children.
But it's PG.
but
it's for children.
rated
Come on.
PG,
Come on.
and it's for children.
Disney.
Yes. To this day, I mean, I can remember every single thing about this movie. I rewatched it preparing for this, and it's still scary. I mean, it looks terrible because it's, filmed in 1980, and it's, when you see it on your screen, it's still in a square.
Right.
But in 2017, Melissa Joan Hart, Clarissa Explains It All, she remade this in a TV movie starring Angelica Houston in the Betty Davis role. I have not seen that. It's kind of like the remake of Martyrs. I'm not going to see it. But The Watcher in the Woods scared me to death. Besides Poltergeist, that's probably the scariest movie I'd seen in my younger years. But, oh, man, you can get your hands on it. It's I had to buy it on Amazon for like the $3.99. But if you have a local library, I'm sure they have it on DVD. Or you can probably find it on YouTube.
Oh my God! And it's got Kyle Richards from Halloween.
Yeah.
Lindsay.
Oh,
wow.
Well, she's now the Real Housewife.
Right.
Hills. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, she plays the young girl.
Oh my gosh! Well, there's some horror provenance for you. My God.
Yes.
You can't beat that.
she showed up in the second Halloween.
Halloween Kills.
Kills,
Yeah. Huh.
Yep.
All right.
So I definitely would
I
recommend
am
it.
watching The
Watch it.
Watcher in the Woods.
Okay.
It's creepy as hell.
So for my next transformative horror movie, this is one which is the validation of what we're doing here.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to jump to 2018.
Woo!
This is
What?
This is New Orleans.
Uh-oh.
This
I think I know
is-
this story.
This is Hereditary.
Yeah.
And this is not only do I consider it to be sort of a Hall of Fame top 10 scary movie.
Yep.
This represented a number of things. If not for this movie, I would not have met Liz.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is super important. If not for meeting Liz, I would have not had the contact or the better contact with Gwen and Brian, who have been transformative to what we do.
Yeah.
On The Scariest Thing. I think this was also my first.
We still had a crappy podcast in 2018.
Yes, we did. We were kind of struggling along, but this was sort of this was a prove it moment because this was also my first horror convention, right? And this was something, and this was the headliner. And after I saw this, I went, I am doing the right thing. The Scariest Things.
Ari Aster has confirmed my path.
This was it, and the fact that I got to go to this, coming off of a buzz and seeing that, going out and sitting in the bar and meeting Udo Kier and then meeting Darren Lynn Bousman.
Yep.
And just being able to share within the horror community and being accepted within the horror community.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being in this old theater, getting just with all those oh shit moments, and just sort of sidebarring with Liz during these moments, it's like,
dude, when her head hits the telephone pole, the entire theater, everybody said, "Oh shit," and then was silent.
Spoiler alert: Charlie's head hits
in that
telephone
theater.
pole.
Yeah, because they also sat and made you wait with Peter as he was processing.
Yes.
We were processing with it, and that kind of thing never happens. You don't ever get the sort of the consequences of something awful like that. But there was, Peter and the desk, Steve catching fire, Annie beheading herself, the miniature work.
Peter banging his head on the desk.
Yeah, that was Peter versus the desk.
Oh, Peter versus the desk. Yeah.
And this is.
Did this end up on your top 10 of all time, or is this top 25?
I think it's someone's. I think it's in my top 10.
Okay.
I just think
top
it's
10.
More, I think it's like 9 or 10 on my list.
Okay.
It's in mine too.
And
here's what and we were talking about this a little bit last week, Eric. I think what's so interesting is that now everything 2018 forward gets compared to Hereditary, and it's like, ooh, this film out Hereditary, but they're taking the same pages.
Hereditary.
They're taking the same pages from the same playbook, which is really, really discordant and very shocking things that you would not think to put together in a scene. And I think this year's Hereditary is obviously When Evil Lurks is got a lot of the same elements and a lot of the same qualities, but you automatically, when you're watching it, you call right back to Hereditary and go, oh, this is where it started. It started right here.
Because previous benchmark would have been Exorcist or The Shining. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and when you're talking about intelligently made scary movies,
yep.
Where this, there have been some ones previous to this that had kind of gotten the buzz in the independent scene, Babadook, The Witch, things like that, but they weren't this scary.
No, and they didn't contain any scenes.
The violence, they didn't have that kind of level of visceral.
No, sir.
Visceral terror. So anyway, this is it. This one will remain with me for all those reasons. The fact that it's a great movie, but it meant so much to me for what we do in The Scariest Things. And because also, I think it was, at the time, it became the buzziest thing that I had written for The Scariest Things. It still remains one of the more reviewed posts that I've done.
Because that was the second showing ever. It premiered at South by or Sundance and then came to Overlook.
It was Sundance. Sundance first. It skipped South by.
Overlook was at a different time of year that time.
Because it was, I think, April.
Yeah.
So anyways, So
all right.
So is it Mike?
Yeah. So my last film, this is the VHS phase of my life, and this was during the lean the lean Reagan years in the 1980s when my dad was in and out of employment, as was a good portion of the country, he ended up, because he had a sales background, managing a series of video stores in Spokane, Washington.
Nice.
Wow.
And
It all makes sense.
it was that, but that job was also very short lived, as was many jobs in the 1980s. Thanks, Ronald Reagan. But my dad invited me early on out to the video store and said, "Oh, we can take home a Laserdisc player, and we can take home whatever Laserdisc you want." And I
Laserdisc
was
at that
like,
time.
"Oh my God, a
big platter.
Laserdisc? What? Wait a second. What?" My brain could not comprehend something so incredibly cool, and I, purely based on the movie poster, or in this case, the cover of the Laserdisc, picked up the Dario Argento film Four Flies on Gray Velvet.
Wow.
And this is an early of the Argento films. This one's from 1971.
That's pretty heady pickup for a
And
young
also, that it
young
on Laserdisc?
Yeah, incredibly so.
as opposed to Slumber Party Massacre. or
Incredibly so.
something like
It's so heady and so complicated that Gene Siskel said that Argento's script contains more red herrings than a Cape Cod room. Each time evidence overwhelmingly points to a possible threat of our bushy-haired hero, that person is bumped off and the guessing game begins anew. I didn't find that rhythm the least bit entertaining. Gene Siskel, you could be no more wrong. This film is, like all Argento films, incredibly complicated, and I would not even begin to try to explain the plot to people, save for it is loud, it is brash, it is colorful, the editing is fascinating, and the film ends in a decapitation that obviously they stole for The Omen. I mean, in the same kind of
Sheet
thing.
of glass.
A car accident decapitation. But that's, I mean, all those things taken together really set me on the path for my love of obviously horror, but in particular my love of giallo, just because they are so wild, so brash, so colorful, so loud, so engaging. Apparently, when Argento was making this, he considered Terrence Stamp for the main role. He even considered several members of the Beatles who were also apparently interested in being in the Argento film, but then Argento decided, no, I'm going to go with sort of a nobody, Michael Brandon, and I'm going to use him as the lead character, the member of a rock band. He's the drummer of a rock band who is the basic premise is he's being followed by a suspicious figure. He chases and confronts this stalker who pulls a knife, and then they get into a scuffle, and he accidentally kills the man. And then the masked figure, there's a masked figure who snaps a series of photographs of this happening, and then there's threatening blackmail type letters going back and forth, and that's as far as I'm going to go into the story because it gets so complicated. But I would.
Is there a leather glove and a hunting knife?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. But
Gotta have a glove. And
I would encourage folks to
Giallo.
go take a look, and maybe we'll post this when we post this episode. Go take a look at the trailer for Four Flies on Gray Velvet. It is absolutely bonkers, and why they don't make trailers like this anymore, I have no idea, because to me, again, it's brash, it's loud, it's colorful, it's wild, it's engaging, it's interesting. So many of the trailers today are just goddamn boring, and they give way too much about the story. This is this very oblique pastiche of images that you have no idea
I think
what
trying
it is
to
you're
give
looking
away
at.
a Dario Argento story would be
Yeah,
kinda
you wouldn't be able to
hard.
do it.
Oh
if you
yeah,
tried.
yeah. You can't do it in it. Yeah, you're right. That's a
There's
good
just
point.
too many loops and backtrack. I mean, you could show the key elements and you wouldn't spoil anything because
True.
the sequencing of how these things and the amount of subterfuge in his
Yeah.
stories
Yeah.
would prevent that from being too spoilery.
Right. Right. Obviously in 2023, Argento has not made a good film for many, many, many years and
Opera,
continue.
you think?
Yeah, probably opera. Maybe it was one of the last okay
That was
ones.
still the 80s, huh?
Yeah. He continues to kind of turn out really pretty terrible film. The Black Glasses was the last one I think he did.
Last year, wasn't it?
Last year before. Yeah, not a great film. It was okay. It had a couple okay elements, but it just really wasn't that good. You know, prior to that, it was, Dario Argento's Dracula. It was Mother of Tears. It was, I mean, he's turned out a lot of junk, and it's kind of sad that he continues to sort of plug away at it. But
in a way, it's like John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Right.
Because Carpenter hasn't done a great horror movie in a very long time.
No.
But his catalog pre 1990 is unimpeachable. Right?
Oh yeah. For sure.
Same thing with Argento.
Yep.
It's that and Romero suffered from the same thing. And at certain points, like there's only so many of the deads that you can do.
Right. Right. Exactly. All right, Liz, what is your last film of the night?
Okay. This would have tied in well with Eric talking about Hereditary, because I blame this film for making me a pretentious A24 fan.
Yes.
Of this film's 40th anniversary, Ed Power from The Independent said that it was a quote-unquote classic, but which, quote, arguably traumatized an entire generation. This is 1978's not-for-children cartoon, Watership Down.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
That's
my
funny.
dad brought this home from the video
God.
store, seeing cartoon bunnies on the cover of the VHS.
Oh, Lord.
And thought, this would be perfect for my 5 to 6 year old child. It's not, folks.
No.
It's based on the beautiful, beautiful book by Richard Adams.
Yep.
But it is described as an animated adventure drama.
As opposed to
there's a lot
animal
of drama.
slaughter.
Yes, but it is the premise of Watership Down, if you do not know, is hoping to escape destruction by human developers and save their community. A colony of rabbits led by Hazel and Fiver seek out a safe place to set up a new warren. There is infighting with the rabbits. There's like a mass rabbit suicide. There's rabbits getting ripped apart by other rabbits and then by a dog before one of them dies and ascends to the rabbit version of heaven. It's traumatizing. It's like the Hereditary of my 6-year-old existence. I mean,
Rabbit
I think.
Hereditary.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yeah, that when these rabbits started ripping each other apart and there is cartoon blood flying across the screen, that was my first shit moment.
Yeah.
Did you watch? Did you watch the, what was it, 2021
Yes.
Netflix version?
Yes,
Yeah,
I did.
which is okay. It's okay.
It's okay. It's tamer.
It's definitely. I was just gonna say it's tamer. It's a lot less bloody. It's a lot less gory. It's a lot less frightening. Although
this movie is terrifying.
My cat loved it because for some reason she never gloms onto anything on the TV. But man,
Rabbits.
while we watched that for however many nights we watched it, she was glued to the TV watching those rabbits every
so
single
funny.
night. Yeah.
Well, since then, I mean, I've watched this film
The poster
every couple
even for
of
Watership
years.
Down.
Yeah,
It's like, man,
horrifying. The rabbit is horrifying.
Yeah.
But I've read the book. I love the book.
Book is great.
Beautiful
1972.
hardcover edition, and oh my god, it's probably one of my favorite books ever written.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the book is much less traumatizing than the cartoon.
I still remember like the rabbits in. It was like a section cut through the tunnels, and they were all. That was they were
They're
all
gonna do
sort
like
of
a suicide, like a mass suicide too. Oh yeah, and then trying to get out, they're all like crammed in there.
Oh god, claustrophobia.
Yeah, it's claustrophobic. It's horrible. So I mean, yes, I think it did traumatize a generation. I mean, because I will never forget it. But
it was good animation too. I mean, it was like
great animation
compared to like the stuff that they would offer up at the time normally for kids on like was Hanna-Barbera stuff or Rankin Bass and this one yeah, this was impressive. And
Do you know who did the
I'm
animation
looking
for
at
it?
it says produced and directed by Martin Rosen.
Yeah, like who
The
the
distri-
animator is, I'll have to look. But
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
so every year,
John
every
Hurt
once
was in
in a
this.
while, yeah, he's the voice of Fiverr.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some horror cred. But Criterion was going to put out an edition, and Gerard Jones, who was going to write the essay for the film, says that this film has troubled me ever since I first saw it. And like everybody, I think who is my age, in their mid to late 40s.
Mhm.
If you can remember this, it definitely affected you. And also, I think it's probably rated G, but it's supposed to get some really good releases.
no.
I'd love to see like a fully restored,
Yeah, that'd be
beautiful
cool to
version.
get
Yeah,
like
released in
a
78.
Supposed to
4K
do one
version.
this year, but that's what it says. The BFI had planned to release a 4K Blu-ray this year, but said they had to cancel it due to external issues beyond their control. I feel that's just like kids these days can't handle it.
That's right. They're getting soft.
It's all of a sudden it went from G to rated R, just like that.
Yeah.
And I
Yes,
love,
I
but
mean-
I also love the names like the rabbits, but they have these sweet names like Blackberry,
Yeah.
and Pippin, or
But
Pipkin,
then there's
Bigwig.
Bigwig. He's
Yeah.
going to be an asshole.
Yeah, no,
Ugh.
that was like the
Cowslip.
throwdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that
It's-
movie was rough.
It's fantastic, but I was like, when I was rewatching it, because I was like, all right, I'm gonna pick this. I was like, this is why I'm a pretentious A24 kid. This is like, oh, we're all happy, skipping through the meadow. Bam! Rabbits are ripped apart. Everybody's dying. And it reminds me, it's like a child's version of Hereditary for me. It was an oh shit moment, but I love it and it's gorgeous. And I'd say seek out the original, and then the Netflix one is not bad. But
Yeah.
read the book. Read
Yeah.
the book.
Well, so
Yeah.
is the Netflix one animated?
Yep.
Yes, but it's fancy looking animation.
Right.
Yeah. What I'm hearing throughout all these films is that empathy plays big in the role of a horror podcaster.
Yeah. I think
That's the foundation. If I was to psychoanalyze very quickly all three of our picks, I would say that empathy is the main and most foundational driver amongst all of us.
Yep. Well, it has to get some sort of an emotional reaction out of me to stick with me.
Yep. Yeah.
So-
and these, I think, King Kong, Watership Down, and the
Amazing Colossal Man.
the Amazing Colossal Man, War of the Colossal Beast. Yes, all have that in common. All right, Liz, you want to take us out with a
All right.
tagline?
I got a tagline from Watcher in the Woods, and the tagline is, "Are you scared of going into the woods? You should be. You should be scared of 1980.
You should be scared of Disney.
Be scared of Disney."